how much money is invested into black music artists versus how much is generated from black music artists.
Like, it is business.
A holder of a lot of secrets.
What can we talk about in regards to the money that's being made versus what looks like it's being made?
We're going to be very deliberate in taking black British sounds and putting it on the same level as the US rappers.
Did you fear that? Was there any fear in that?
I don't want to be that guy shuffling around at the MOGUL Awards talking about I used to run Spotify.
The record labels aren't there for the artists and they're just trying to take.
What can I say that's going to be non-controversial? What can I say?
Yo, my people, them, it's your boy Trist Taylor. I'm back with another episode of the Brand Therapy Show where we speak about businesses, brands and experiences in a therapeutic conversation. And we're back in London. You know, I love when I'm filming in London. I get to connect the dots that I don't really get to connect when I'm back home. And today, without further ado, I've spoken about this for a while on my social media. I haven't revealed who. I've said that I've got one of the biggest episodes for me personally, and it is my brother, an absolute GOAT, a legend in the music business, Austin DABOH. My brother.
My guy.
We're here.
We made it.
I'm not going to even talk to him about the background or what we've been through, but we're here is the main point. How are you, bro?
I'm good, my guy. First of all, welcome back to London.
Yeah.
I know that you've been doing your thing, doing big, interesting things in Dubai, do you know what I'm saying? And we sort of spoke about some stuff off camera that you're involved in that's very inspiring, I'm sure. You would tell the people them at your own time and at your own pace. But yeah, man, I'm good. I'm good, man. Like, you know, I'm in a good space, mentally, physically, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything feels good, man.
Yeah, I'll be transparent. Obviously, we had linked up before to film. I'm glad that we're doing it again. Reason being is because when you had shouted me, I was happy that you shouted me, to be honest, because we left here and they'll see this on the behind the scenes, like outside there's some big debate scene in our docu-series. I'm like, but I'm not happy, man. Like, I'm like, bro, like, it was good, but it just wasn't. Like, I don't know. I can't say I'm happy with it, but I'm happy with the achievement of getting him.
You gotta be happy with it, bro.
No, but I'm not happy with the convo.
He didn't go into podcast mode. He was in interview mode.
Yeah.
You know what? It's a quick conversation with Austin, isn't it? At the end of the day, innit? Do you know what I mean? And I think to give people a background, obviously you're someone that I've looked up to for a long time. Like I'm never in my ego to say things like that. And I feel like the reason I have is because you've been consistent. You always used to drop gems. Like I'm going back to like when I was, bro, like this is like when I was like 19, bro. Yeah, I'm 32 now. So this is like 12 years ago, yeah? And this is before Instagram was really big. This is when on Twitter where gems wasn't actually as saturated as now. Like getting gems, you had to grab onto that.
Factual.
And I noticed you was always just dropping game, whether it be getting in the music industry, getting playlisted. So I want to start off with who you are, what you do, and what you've done as well. I can talk my shit for you, but I'm gonna let you humbly speak, and then I'll add some sauce onto it.
I hear that. So listen, for those who don't know, my name's Austin, and I suppose what have I done my whole career? I've tried to support talented artists to make black music. And that means that they tend to normally come from and be born from black music culture. My career started off at radio, where I was a music programmer for BBC Radio 1 Extra. A music programmer is someone who takes a playlist of songs and programs them on daytime radio. So from 6 a.m. in the morning till about 6, 7 p.m. in the evening, most of the things that you hear on Capital Extra, 1 Extra, Radio 1, Kiss, Magic, Heart, etc. A music programmer has chose those songs and the presenter then obviously presents the links in between. So I started off my career doing that. Then I moved over into streaming, worked for Spotify for a number of years, moved over to Apple Music for a short period of time, and now I'm the vice president at Atlantic Records and also the president of Black Music. And it's my job to inspire, lead, motivate, energize the teams as they sign, develop, and put out, you know, great music, man.
Yeah.
So that's what I do in a nutshell. I've always been passionate about what moves audiences at scale. I've always been fascinated about what makes 100,000 people or 1 million people or 10 or 20 people all decide that don't know each other, all decide to do something at the same time. That's always fascinated me. And, you know, you sort of take that fascination and add it with a passion for black music and a passion for music in general. And my career kind of, my CV, I suppose, is a reflection of that passion and that inquisitive nature that I've got.
I love the way you word that. I think that's why I took an interest in your journey, because it's the same for me. That looking at almost like social trends, but based off of the music industry and why does everyone like this and what is it that they like, and then working that out, I think is that's me. Like, that's what I like to study. Going back to the beginning, did you study for that?
You know what? I never, I really fell into music. So if I was to rewind all the way back, like to my childhood, I grew up in a household where music was always in the background, but never in the forefront, because I was the youngest kid, so the musical decisions, like, they weren't really ever mine. But I remember I'm an 80s baby that grew up in the 90s and noughties. So I remember kind of hearing music seeping under the door, seeping kind of up the stairs, floating up the stairs, and kind of hitting my ears when I was younger. And it was whatever was like popular at the time: Michael Jackson, Madonna. When I'd go to like West African house parties or West African events, christenings, weddings, etc., it would be high life music, like traditional Afrobeat music. And I'd always been a fan of music. And then I suppose when I was about 12, 13, 14 years old, that was around about the exact same time that UK Garage was peaking. So I was like 12, 13, 14 in like 98, 99, 2000. So all the man them from school, they were all spitting, DJing, rapping, etc. And I figured out pretty quickly that my skill set was actually in organising my school friends. Like, I would look at all my school friends and I'll be like, you know what, I'm probably not as good a spitter as you, but what I really do have a really good skill set in is, remember the mini DV cams? That back in the day? I had a little mini DV cam and I'd shoot like now, looking at it now, I was shooting music videos. I didn't realise it at the time. At the time, we're just in the school classroom and we're just messing around. But looking back now, we were shooting little promo videos and that. So I was doing that. And then a lot of people's stories when it comes to like how they got into an industry or how they became successful, quite often there's luck plays a big part in it. You know what I'm saying? And the piece of luck that I had was that my mum had a job where she was given a computer to take home. In the late 90s, turn of the century, you see what I'm saying? Not everyone had a laptop, do you know what I mean? Mobile phones weren't even in everyone's pockets like that. And I'm making myself sound old, do you know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. And my mum had a computer that was in the yard. So what it meant was I was the only person that we knew in my social circle that had a computer with easy access to it. So things like Photoshop, the Microsoft Office suite, all them basic packages that we kind of take for granted now. I had access to those and I understood and taught myself how to use them. So without really realising it, I became someone who people in the area were coming to help out with musical advice, or to help out on musical advice or help out on musical subjects, whether that be burning CDs for them, whether that be making flyers for events, whether that be even like helping to produce and mix and little do bits of engineering. I've actually got a beat CD that I'm going to upload one day.
No way.
You're going to hear how whack my beats were. But yeah, all of that stuff. And it was all informal experience. So by the time I applied for a job at One Extra, I had no formal experience.
How old is you?
I was 19, just before my 20th birthday.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm kind of missing chunks out of the story. Do you know? To cut a long story short, I did work experience. I did work experience and various placements at different media companies. So I was building up this like semi-formal media industry experience. And then at the same time, I had all of this informal music experience because a particular brethren of mine, Smiler, shout out to Spars.
I was actually going to refer to him.
Yeah.
We have to refer to him.
Yeah, definitely, man. That's my guy.
Yeah.
And basically, he went from being like the sickest rapper in school to then getting attention at like a pirate radio level. Do you know what I mean? And then it went from a pirate radio level to a national radio level. So the One Extras and the Capital Extras, back then it was called Trace FM, they started to become interested in him. We started to get MTV Bass and promoters call up, etc. And he didn't have a manager. And we were best friends from school time, primary school times, we were best friends. So he just hit me and was like, yo, like, I need help answering these emails. I need help, like, picking up the phone, etc. And Smiler, and he won't mind me saying this, Smiler back then was obviously you know, he wasn't working the same way I was. Do you know what I'm saying? So in terms of like, I was used to answering the phone and doing emails and that, and he was used to a different type of communication. So basically, I was managing him, but again, I didn't realize I was managing him. I was just helping out a brethren. So what happened was, at the point at which I applied for the job at One Extra, I didn't realize how underqualified I was for the role. But you know, when you're young, you're cocky, you're arrogant,
winging it.
Do you see what I'm saying? You're blagging it a little bit. But yeah, shout out to Laura Lucans, do you know what I mean? Because she saw right through blags, but she also at the same time saw some talent in me and took a chance, man. And yeah, that's what happened. So there was no formal training, but I hella informal training.
The more you talk, and this isn't even stuff we spoke about or I was new, like I know why I took a shine towards your journey, because everything you just said is me to a T. Literally everything, like in the area, you lot can do better than this, burning CDs, engineering, like, and being the first one to have a proper job and be able to communicate. And they all saw it as like, write this letter for me, please, bro. Like, how do I respond to this, bro? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I get it. So all right, so you applied for One Extra. Got that job. What happened here? Because the reason I want to touch on One Extra is for me, that's my first resume for seeing you. And throughout this conversation, I want to give them the narrative of someone who saw it and the narrative of someone who did it. And I saw it as a younger person, and the way I saw it was, your name kept coming up in every direction. So this is at a time where I'm within the funky house industry. I'm unofficially managing my friend, big man Zest, shout out to Zest, and he's got a funky house hit that's working. We're just trying to get in the door. Like, whether it's Posty, Jamal, Rashid, or One Extra, or we're just whatever, we're doing everything. I Love Lives, we're turning up. And your name just kept coming up. And then obviously following you, I started to realize that you had power within One Extra. Whether I knew what that power was at the time, but I started to realize later on that it meant that if you kind of signed it off, it would get playlisted. So elaborate a bit on the stint that you had at One Extra and obviously the changes you made there as well.
Yeah, definitely, man. So if I just like a quick history lesson, do you know what I mean? That when I joined One Extra, it was the mid-noughties, it was 2006. I joined One Extra, I think, a month or two before YouTube launched. Do you know what I'm saying? I joined a month or two before, which just sounds crazy to say. Like, Facebook was only 1 or 2 years old, I think, at them times. They are certainly in the UK, do you know what I mean? I think it was only a couple of years old. There was obviously no Instagram. There was no Twitter. So if you were a black music maker, the only way that you could really get supported was if one of the BBC radio stations supported you, Kiss FM playlisted you, or the Capital Network supported you. And then from a TV point of view, you best hope that MTV Base are supporting your music video. Obviously, Channel U, Channel AKA was doing their thing as well. But really, radio was the king of the castle them times. Do you know what I'm saying? It was the only place where it could guarantee you like a hit record if you got playlisted by all the radio stations. So the way that it worked at One Extra was that One Extra and Radio One are what you call sister stations. Do you know what I'm saying? So they're both, they share some of the same resources. And if you get playlisted on One Extra, it meant you stood a better chance of then sort of upgrading and getting playlisted on Radio One. So when I joined One Extra, I joined at a time where Black British music wasn't where it is today. And it felt like there was a bit of a one in, one out policy. Do you know what I'm saying? I remember even one time, like, programming 2 or 3 UK records next to each other and being told, oh, it sounded a bit nuts on it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, it must have been like a Kano and a Dizzy or whatever. I can't remember. Because it was back to back. Exactly. And this is during the height of, I don't know, G Unit, 50 Cent, The Game, Jay, Nas. Do you know what I mean? Everything that was dominating hip hop during the early noughties. So back then, UK music, but and you know what? To be fair, and I know I'm jumping around a little bit. To be fair, the production quality and the overall quality of Black British music at that time wasn't necessarily competing with the US.
Yeah, fact.
Do you get it? So I can understand now, looking back, why it did feel a bit nuts sometimes, hearing too much UK music clustered together. And that's no one's fault. That just kind of is what it is. But basically, between myself, my boss at the time, Laura Lucans, and then the rest of the team, we sort of set about changing it, basically. We sort of set about saying, you know, we're going to be very deliberate and blatant in taking Black British sounds and putting it on the same level as the US rappers. And there was a lot of pushback at the time. Do you know what I'm saying?
I was going to say, did you fear that? Was there any fear in that? Like, what led you to... Because, like, look, let's be honest, it's still... Now you've built such a good reputation for yourself, but at this stage or early on, you're still risking losing a very good job. Was there any fear in that?
You know what? There was no fear because I had a brilliant leader.
Okay.
And I think a key thing behind anyone who has had some level of success in their career is having brilliant mentors and brilliant leaders. Do you know what I mean? And that's the reason why anytime I get the opportunity to, I'll always shout out Laura Lucans, who was a woman who not only employed me, but took me as a 19, 20-year-old and gave me like a huge amount of responsibility, allowed me to fuck up and make mistakes and not like punish me too severely for those mistakes. And then also, man, just show me that anything was possible as well. And also shout out to Ray Paul as well, who was the station director at the time. And again, sat down with me and really took hours and days and weeks teaching me how to be excellent in my job at that time. So I think that's the reason why I felt confident to just, you see what I'm saying, to back funky, to back UK street rap, to back UK R&B, like all of the genres that me and my team and the team that I was working in supported at the time. Was it a risk? Definitely. We risked losing listeners. It wasn't really more about the internal thing. It was more the external thing, like, are users gonna turn off their radio, turn off their DAB, turn off their online stream if they hear too much of this kind of UK rap stuff or too much of this UK R&B? And there were some dark days where them listening figures were coming out. We were kind of looking at them, kind of looking around, you know what I'm saying, putting them in the drawer. But luckily, after a while, we sort of broke through a barrier. And I suppose the rest is history from then.
What would you say allowed that barrier to break? Like, what was it that you looked around and everyone was like, okay, we're with it, Austin?
You know what? It was a mixture of, I think, of a bunch of things. I would say it was a mixture of not just us being fearless, that's one extra, but other stations being fearless, because you can't really break or bust an artist without other platforms also doing it too. Do you know what I mean? It's very, very difficult for just one platform to break an artist. So I think one extra definitely led the way. There's no doubt about that. We were always first, but it was other stations coming to the table too. So it was the other radio stations, our competitors. It was stations like TV stations like MTV Base and obviously Channel U, Channel AKA. It was the journalists. You know, you look at people like Hyper Frank, you look at people like Joseph Patterson, etc. Do you know what I'm saying? JP, exactly. You look at those people there, Chantel Fiddy, obviously. And at the same time that we were playlisting these artists, they were writing about those artists. Festival bookers were booking those. Do you see what I'm saying? So it was one big engine that was all kind of working together. At the start, when I first joined One Extra, it was maybe just like us, this single engine trying to do its thing. But then all those other names and platforms that I'm just mentioning, they all kind of added to the engine. And I wouldn't say there was any one that was more important than the other. But yeah, you know, we you know, without realizing it, we all kind of were working together.
Yeah, I was gonna say as well, I feel like you've always come across like you was down to work together as well. Like you would see your Chantal Fiddies, your JPs, and then embrace them. I would see it online, like you would be open towards like bigging them up or giving them a platform. So I feel like the more you done that, the more togetherness came. Because I've never seen you as like, this is my lane and I'm cracking on over here. I feel like your thing's always been like, this is how we all win, innit? Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, man.
And I think that says a lot about your character as well. So being in One Extra, what was the main point where you felt you got to a bit of a ceiling? Like, what was it you did in One Extra or One Extra did that made you think, okay, cool, it's time to move on?
You know what? One Extra, like, the BBC feels like home. Do you get it? Like,
yeah,
the BBC,
still now.
Yeah, it's just home. Like, it's kind of where I grew up. It's where I spent the sort of the longest amount of time in my career, like 8 years, almost 10 at the BBC. So it just kind of feels like home. And I feel like the BBC is an amazing organisation. The BBC is like, how can I put it? There's a solidness to the BBC because it's 100 years old. So their processes, the way that they do things, the way that they handle situations, the precedents that they've set, etc. There's always an answer to everything. Do you know what I mean? Any situation that came up, that any problem that I faced, someone somewhere in that building had dealt with it before, and it allowed us a really solid foundation to kind of attack the world with. But I'm very entrepreneurial by my nature, and the BBC isn't necessarily the place for people that are super entrepreneurial. So yeah, man, I just felt like I was in my mid-20s, and I felt like I really wanted to sort of step out and try and run a business and launch a business, and I saw a gap in the market. So I was like, you know what, I love you lot, but I'm ducking. And that was the first time I left the BBC.
And what was that into?
And I started a company called The Hub Entertainment. And looking back now, man, I had so much fun during those few years, man. Like, I saw a gap in the market for an organisation that could take talent, radio talent, TV talent, sporting talent, and basically link them with brands. Now, that sounds very simple in 2023 because everyone's doing it. But back in 2011, when I left, from what I could see, nobody was really doing it in any kind of meaningful way. Certainly not in the black music space. So, yeah, man, I left the BBC. I teamed up with an investor, an angel investor, and we started The Hub Entertainment. We looked after a bunch of radio presenters. We looked after some singers. We looked after some athletes as well. And we had an amazing, like, 2.5, 3 years, man. We worked with some of the biggest brands in the world. We put together partnerships with brands like Adidas, Mercedes. We looked after 2 athletes who won medals at the Olympic Games. Like, we did some amazing things. We were involved in sort of a top 5 chart hit. So we did some really, really fun stuff. But what I realized was that I probably work best as an entrepreneur with a loose structure around me. So
I find that really, sorry to cut you, I find that really interesting because you stand for and represent the people that are minority in the sense of, I'm not a fan of this whole culture of, like, you can't have a job and be successful, or because effectively you have a job, like, you work for a corporation. But the way you've done it is like hella cool. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I've got a job, but you feel your whole vibe is like about I'm my own boss. I want to touch on that. Like, how, like, was that intentional? Like, what, and how does that feel for you as well?
Yeah, you know what? Like, we talk about this all the time, the whole like 9 to 5 versus entrepreneur debate, etc. And I think, look, the way I look at it is that, first of all, if you look at most of the world's richest people, most of the world's most sort of successful people, quote unquote, the first chunk of their career is quite often a 9 to 5, working for someone or working within an organisation. And I think you just do whatever works for you. Do you know what I'm saying? For some people, being 100% entrepreneurial and running their own companies and being their own boss, that's great if that works for them. And for other people, working 9 to 5 and sort of always having a boss, that works for them. I like a mixture of the two. I love working in organisations, especially ones that allow me to be entrepreneurial. And, you know, I just always say to the young ones who ask me this question, the vast majority of people that buy luxury cars are 9 to 5 workers. The vast majority of people that buy luxury watches and go on luxury holidays and are in the first class section of planes, they're 9 to 5 workers. Do you get it? If you for me, it's like, where do you want to get to in that organisation? Because you can join McDonald's, for example, and you can start off on the floor flipping burgers, earning minimum wage. Then you might then get promoted to being the store manager and you might be on 20, 30, 40 grand a year. But if you rise up the ranks in McDonald's, the CEO of McDonald's, I read, gets £11 million a year. Do you know what I'm saying? So you can be a 9 to 5 corporate person, but depending on where you're at in the tree, you can earn far more than a very large majority of people that run their own businesses. But like I said, each to their own, and I think there are some amazing examples of entrepreneurs who have always just worked for themselves. There are some amazing examples of some sort of 9 to 5 workers, man, but just do whatever works for you. And then in terms of flipping that back to my own experiences, like I said, I've always really enjoyed working with larger teams, with resources that I can pull from. And yeah, man, like I said, more power to Atlantic Records and more power to Warner for allowing me to step in. A lot of the changes that we've made have been quite entrepreneurial changes together as a leadership team. And I think that's the reason why, you know, we're doing, you know, as well as we can be, man. So, yeah.
we're gonna dive heavy into Atlantic. Just before we get there, like, I know after One Extra, like, I think something I've always said to you is every time we've ever touched base, you're about to level up on them again. Like, there's a pivot coming where it's always been like, I'm on it, but one sec, because I'm just about to do this, I'm just about to do that. I think one of the last times I remember speaking to you was the Atlantic move. And I don't think you told me what it was. I remember you saying something big's coming, talk after that. And then I saw it, and I saw like the blogs talking about, etc. And it's like, okay, cool. There was a time between One Extra and, forgive me on the timeline, Spotify and Apple. Yeah. Talk us through that, because the way I've heard it was like almost like it was a bidding war. Do you know what I mean? In regards to like, we want you here, we want you there, and you had to kind of sit back and work out what was best for you. I don't know if that's true, but how did it go?
Yeah, and you've done your research.
Yeah, come on.
So you know what? I would say the first half of my career is a series of decisions based on what looked the most fun and well-paid role. And just like a lot of people, most young people that are going to be watching this are probably doing the exact same thing, right? That if I was offered a position, the first thing I would look at is the salary, then the job spec. Do you get it? And I feel like the second half of my career is about the job spec, the people, the leaders, and sometimes not even looking at the salary. And that's the honest truth, you know what I'm saying? So when I'm
going to jump in, why though? Because I relate to that, why?
Yeah, you know why? Because money's not everything. And as you get older, you kind of realise that there's a limit to how happy money can make you. I remember when I first joined the BBC, I was on something like 22 grand a year. And I thought to myself, yo, imagine being on 35 racks a year. Do you see what I'm saying? Imagine being on 35 racks a year. And, you know, I'm there on Listen to Taxman and I've got the calculator out and I'm like, raw, like, I'm on 22 and something now. But this job here, if I apply for this job and it's like 35, then that's going to give me an extra X amount a month and whatever. And that means I can jump from the Corsa to the A3 or whatever the car was at the time that I was looking at. And then you then get to that level and then you then realise it all feels the same. Do you see what I'm saying? The feeling of putting on a brand new white-faced Daytona feels exactly the same as putting on a Casio after a week or two. Do you know what I mean? You might get tiny little flashes and glimpses where it kind of makes you feel like, I've got like a big boy watch on, or I'm driving a big boy car, or I'm in a big boy house. But it gets to a level and it all feels the same.
I agree.
So I was quite lucky, I feel like, that I got to that stage of understanding that pretty quickly. So by the time it came from the transition from sort of BBC to Spotify, of course money's important, do you know what I mean? I've got a family and kids to feed and house to maintain, etc. And you know, you sort of want to do things in life and that might mean needing to invest, etc. So of course money is important, but for the first time ever, when I was transitioning from the BBC to Spotify, it was like, let me think about the reasons why I'm doing this. Do you see what I'm saying? And definitely ever since then, man, it's always been, do I believe in the company ethos? Do I believe in where the company's going? Like I said, what does the leadership structure look like? What change can I affect to that? And that's how I tend to look at opportunities. But it's worth saying, you know, I'm sort of at Warner. But they've got, you know what I mean? I'm in, I'm locked in, the seatbelt's on. I've been there for 3 years now. And, you know, this sort of, I'm about to enter my 4th year, man. You know what I'm saying? So it's been an amazing journey, man, and one that will continue for years.
I know when you was at Spotify, you're probably going to say I've done my research again on this one, To be fair, it's not even intentional research. It's just like being networked, and it's like I said, there's very few people. Why I see this as and I'll sidetrack a bit, as such a big conversation for me, is because there's very few people in your position that we get to speak to. Like, I know there must be more that we don't necessarily know of. I hear of the names and they come up, but I just think that when people look at the music, and we said this off camera, people look at music industry and they mix it with the music business. And the music business, for me, is where I've always had an interest in. Who's behind that artist? Well, how comes he's always pops up like Like, I remember years back, like, seeing Benny Scars, not knowing who it was, and I'm like, why is this guy? I need to know him. I don't want to know the artist, I want to know him. So yeah, Spotify. I know that you done a lot there, and I know that you was either partly or fully responsible for Who We Be, which is obviously still a big thing. Like, it's a huge thing. Talk to us about that. Like, what was your role at Spotify, and how did that go?
Yeah, man. So my role at Spotify was I started off as a senior editor, and then I got promoted to sort of head of editorial. So my job was to manage the team that created and maintained the playlist ecosystem. So some people use Spotify playlists, some don't. For those who don't, you can go onto Spotify. You can either search for or any playlist or any DSP. Sorry, you can search for a playlist. Or you can search for your own music. And if you search for like hip hop or R&B or grime or trap or drill, then it will come up with Spotify's own playlist, and that was made by Spotify editors. Do you know what I'm saying? So so not too dissimilar to what I was doing at One Extra, but instead of programming just like the radio station, I was programming playlists instead.
Okay, I didn't actually know that.
So what happened with Who We Be, just to give like a very like quick rundown of how that came to be. At the time we had we had 3 playlists. We had a playlist called Grime Shutdown, that was obviously all about grime. We had a playlist called Rap UK, that was all UK rap. And then we had a playlist called This Is How We Do, which was an R&B playlist. And all 3 of those playlists were amazing, and big up the team, Rob Khan and the James Foley and the team that were kind of there before me that started those playlists. But at the time, I saw that there wasn't a playlist that represented like Wireless Festival. And I feel like Wireless Festival at the time, obviously there are other festivals that are doing their thing now, like Parklife, etc. But Wireless Festival at the time felt like the one festival where it all came together if you were a fan of black music culture. So I was like, right, there's not a playlist that represents Wireless Festival, that represents that summer jam feeling of just kind of like everything all together. Because we know that R&B audiences don't just live in a silo. Grime audiences don't just live in a silo. Some do, some only listen to grime music, but actually a big chunk of those people also listen to pop, R&B, hip hop, etc. So yeah, I basically was sat down one day, pulled together this kind of thesis around why it needed a playlist like this, spoke to George Ergatudis, who at the time was my boss, and was like, yo, we need a playlist that represents the culture, and it should be a mixture of all these genres. Pulled together like a test playlist, we listened through it, and he was like, yeah, man, it's a sick idea, man, let's go for it. And that was it. We were just like brainstorming ideas one day over lunch. I was like, oh, who we are, where we are, who we be.
Sick.
Who We Be.
He
looked at me, he was like, yeah, Who We Be. Do you know what I'm saying? And that was it. An hour later, the playlist was live. Do you know what I'm saying? And the rest is history, man. So,
but I mean, the rest is history. That's gone on to, like, that's launched careers, like, off of the back of that. Like, would you, I know you do the humble thing, but can we agree that that has bust some careers?
You know, I'm way too humble. Where's the camera? I'm way too humble. I'll never.
Okay,
do you know what I'm saying?
I'll say it then. I'll say it, no problem. I am saying, me, Trist Taylor, Who We Be, I know it's definitely helped, and big shout out to these people. I know it's definitely helped Henry's career, and I know she's doing extremely well. I think even Harry Pinero has done well off of it. There's probably others that I don't necessarily pay massive attention to, but those 2, I think, have shined on that platform. And this is a salute to them as well, like, especially Henry. Like, I think she kills that platform, do you know what I mean? So I feel like what you've created was a massive bridge. And out of curiosity, was that before Spotify took an interest in Free Shots of Tequila?
So, well, first of all, big up Henry and Harry Pinero, obviously.
Yeah, I know there's names I've missed, by the way.
No.
Those 2.
Yeah, definitely. Bit like big them up. They, it was the new team after I left that employed those 2 and put them on. Do you know what I mean? But big them up. But no, like Free Shots of Tequila was kind of, I suppose, one of the first podcasts that Spotify UK decided to invest in.
Was you there at the time?
I was there at the time. Okay. Yes, I brokered the deal.
That's mad, because obviously Taser's a good brand.
Yeah. Big up Taser.
The deal on my platform about 2, so it's sick to see the other side of it.
Yeah. Big up Taser, obviously. Big up Keith. Big up Marvin. Do you know what I mean? Big up the Free Shots guys. So there was a podcast team at Spotify, and they were the ones who ultimately would decide and sign off on playlists. But you know, everyone knows what I do, right? Do you know what I mean? It's my job to translate street culture, black music culture. I'm the API between the streets culture and the corporate companies. So I suppose during that period where podcasts, not just at Spotify, I sort of gave advice to a few different podcasts. Yeah, man, I helped to broker that deal, but again, I don't want to take anything away from like the Free Shots guys. It was their talent, their drive, their success that made that happen. But yeah, I just sort of took one plug and kind of plugged it into another, man. But yeah, big up the Spotify podcast team on that.
Why is it so important to you to be so humble?
You know what?
And not take credit for things?
That's a really good question, and I don't think I've ever said this publicly before, but I'm gonna say it. When I first joined One Extra, I went to a music panel conference, and coming from where I come from, you get older people that might have been someone back in the day, and they're either still doing their thing successfully, or they're talking about what they used to do successfully back in the day. And that never impressed me. I was just I don't know if it's genetics or the way I was raised, I don't know, but whenever I would hear someone talk about what they done back in the day, I would always just look at them, even as a little kid, and be like, yeah, but what are you doing now? Yeah. So fast forward, I'm at a conference, and it's my first like week at One Extra. And I'm sat at this conference, and there's a bunch of people on stage, and I'm obviously not going to mention no names, but there's a bunch of people on stage, and there was one person on stage talking about all the stuff that they had done. And they were talking about stuff from like 5, 6, 7 years before. And I remember just sitting there thinking, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy shuffling around at the MOGUL Awards in scuffed Air Force Ones, talking about I used to run Spotify. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't want to be that guy. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? I get what you're saying. Like, and maybe that's just maybe I've just got to get over that. Do you see what I'm saying? But
that
like,
guy that you're talking about is usually done out now. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose.
But you've not ever done out. Like you're still, I mean, worst English ever, but you're still like very relevant and will continue to be. So I do get it. I also am intrigued as to, forget the stuff you've done, but just in regards to like, I don't know, like standing next to the achievement. And I'm not saying you should, I just want to get into the mind.
Yeah.
I know for you, like even in the short time that we've actually been connected, like I know for you it's like, yeah, I don't know. Like you just want to move on. Like, whereas, do you think there's going to be a time, maybe like when you're at a stage of looking to tap out of the game or whatever, where you sit and accept it, or do you, not really? You
know what? Definitely, man. Like I'm writing my memoirs. Do you know what I'm saying? I think the thing is, it's very hard to talk about stuff when people are still active. You see what I'm saying? So, like, you've got to be able to protect, like, my relationships with artists and my relationships with the culture comes from people feeling like they can pick up the phone, get some real advice from an OG, and that's not gonna go any further. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm a holder of a lot of secrets and a lot of situations that have happened, and a lot of advice and a lot of words and a lot of music, etc. So, you know, for me, I can't ever betray that. So there'll come a time and a place for sure, once I've tapped out of the game, once other people have tapped out of the game, that we can talk about. And none of them are that bad. Do you see what I'm saying? But just, you know, I don't want to sit here and say, I'm the reason why that person chose that single. I'm the reason why that record went to #1 or whatever. You know, I've just never really been that guy.
That's interesting, man. Because obviously in the business, a lot of people are, especially in America, like you watch these interviews and it usually comes out in an interview, do you know what I mean? You're right, though, to be honest. They don't really scream and shout it, but when it comes to an interview, I don't know, like you'll hear, like I think the other day they spoke about the fact that Pharrell was behind an SWV song, and that's him in the... Like, it is beautiful when you find out so much time later, I can't lie.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, one thing I'd say, just to cut you off real quick, is that there are some things I'll stand next to happily, publicly, because they're factually correct. So if someone says Austin was the first ever person in the world to playlist that particular artist?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man, I was. Do you see what I'm saying? Because that's like factual.
Yeah.
That's like literally written in the history book.
Objective as well.
But a lot of things are subjective.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, because I'm quite loud on social media, and there's not that many industry people that are as loud as me. Certainly back in the day anyway. Obviously now you've got a lot of industry people that are very loud on social media.
Yeah.
But if you rewind to maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was one of the few.
Yeah.
So because I was one of the loudest people that would shout about things, people would see success happening in an artist's career and then draw a direct line from that success to my Twitter page, or from that success to my Insta page, not realizing that that artist has got a manager, a booking agent, this person here wrote about them, etc. Do you see what I'm saying?
I feel like that's where
exactly. So that's where, for me, I'll never try to say, okay, when someone says, "Oh, Austin helped bust that artist," it might be partially true, but I'll never stand next to that because that's subjective. When someone says, "Yo, Austin put that person on Who We Be before anyone else playlisted him," I'll stand next to that.
Yeah. When it's grey, stay away from it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, cool. So after that, I mean, we could touch on Apple, but I feel like, what would you say the highlights from Apple were?
Apple was an amazing company, do you know what I'm saying? And I was there for a short period of time. Big up everyone at Apple. Big up George, Ryan Newman, the whole team, Brian, etc. Apple, the agenda playlist, I wasn't there for a long period of time, but to be able to...
That was you behind that as well?
And the team. I led the team, exactly, at the time. And sort of from conception, from name, inception, inception or conception, I don't know, whatever. I dreamt about it and then we brought it to life.
Yeah.
But
so you, sorry to jump in, you kind of made something that rivaled your, well, you was a part of making something, use your language, you was a part of making something, and then you rivaled it with something else you was a part of making. Really, because I'm sure Agenda felt like a bit like, it felt like as a consumer, Apple's attempt to a playlist. It was the first of that kind.
Like, I mean, a lot of people have said it felt like a Who We Be, and I can't sit here and say that wasn't the plan. So, Who We Be, and it wasn't just Who We Be, it was the whole playlist ecosystem that we
that's what I mean.
At Spotify, it was very successful. Do you see what I'm saying? So, of course, going over to Apple, the agenda, excuse the pun, between myself and George and the whole team at the time who was running it was all about how do we create a similar playlist ecosystem. And we were able to start that with, I mean, it had started before I joined, but in terms of the black music side of things, I helped to expand on it. And Agenda at the time was my baby. So I'm proud of kind of birthing that. And I mean, one of the best things I've ever done to this day was that we did this amazing photo shoot with Agenda, and we had DBE, AJ Tracy, do you see what I'm saying? Miss Banks, Dave, like, you know what? On this podcast, you should put the pictures up on you know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember that very well.
We took over the London Underground at the time. It was incredible, do you know what I mean? And that's, to this day, one of the proudest things that I've done. And then we topped that off with, just before COVID, literally, it must have been about 2 or 3 weeks before COVID hit and lockdown hit. We did an event with Dave performing to all of his biggest fans as part of it. It was like Agenda Live. So yeah, man, that was sick. But yeah, man, Apple was like a small but important little like chapter in my journey, man. Big them up.
And then after that is when obviously we took the jump into Atlantic. So what prompted that? Because I feel like, again, I wasn't there, but just from talking to you, I know it's current, but it feels like you are really at home with Atlantic. Like it feels like that's family aside of just business as well. Like, again, I might be wrong, but what was it that led to that jump? And am I right in regards to saying that?
You know what? That's a really good question, and I don't think anyone's really put it like that before. But when I talk to people privately, I say a very similar thing.
Yeah, I think that's where I've got that from. By the way. Start conversation.
Exactly. I feel like before having any idea that I was ever going to work at Atlantic, when I was on the other side of the fence and I was interacting with record labels, because obviously it was record labels' jobs to have relationships with people like me, I always felt like Atlantic's personality was very similar to my own. So it was humble, it was more understated and laid back. It would let its results do the talking more so than, do you know what I mean? It would shout sometimes when it had to, but it would more time let its results do the talking. And there was just a very calm demeanour to the people that I knew there, do you know what I'm saying? So I always felt like, I always knew I was going to work at a record label eventually. And I always felt like they were #1 on the list if I ever was to make the jump. So fast forward when I got the phone call, and you know, big up Tony Harlow and Max Lusada, and Ed and Bryony, who were the co-presidents of the label. When I got the phone call to come over and run the black music infrastructure at Atlantic and be the vice president of the company, even the approach mirrored how I felt they were as an organization. And I had some very honest conversations around kind of what value I could bring, not just as an executive across sort of all creeds, colours, cultures, genres, but you know what I could do as a black executive as well, very important, especially at that time for the organisation. And during that process of communication between the team and the senior leadership team at Warner and at Atlantic, man, it just felt, I can just tell I'm going to get on here.
Yeah.
And from day one, that's what it's felt like, man. It's felt like, you know what it feels like? It feels like my first few years at One Extra. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
mad, entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
We're doing things for the first time. We're breaking boundaries. We're trying to break records. And everyone's on the same page, man. Do you know what I mean? And there were about 50 staff members who are all rowing on the same boat, all trying to be great. Do you know what I'm saying? And man, it's been an amazing, honestly, it's flown by. So I can't even believe it's been 3 going on 4 years, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
When people refer to the music business, especially like artists, younger artists or rap, like just you hear it a lot. There used to be, and probably still is, that narrative of like the powers that be, and it's very white led or even led by other cultures. Let's say, how important is it to you to be a black exec at a major label? Like how does that feel, and is that something you ever think about? Like running a department like black music, it must be quite you get reminded every day kind of thing.
Yeah, man. I think I've always prided myself on being an executive who can operate across the board. For everything that I've done in black music, I could point to achievements that I've worked on or been involved in that don't involve black music. In fact, the first ever plaque I got was for a Biffy Clyro album called Revolutions. Do you know? It's a rock album.
Yeah.
And that was because I sat on the Radio 1 playlist team that supported that album when it first came out. Big up Christian Tattersfield and that team, do you know what I'm saying, who got me my first ever plaque. So Christian and probably Jane Arthur, I think probably would have been involved in it. It's a long time ago. But basically, I've always prided myself on being someone who represents all cultures, not just black culture, but being unapologetically black. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a little bit of a contradiction.
You said it for me.
Do you get it?
This is, because I know, because I have an understanding of you, I approached it like that, but you said it for me. It's like, you're very unapologetically black. Like, it's ironic, because the other day I bumped into Storms. I hadn't seen him in years. Big shout out to Storm. And we had a conversation, like, similar kind of thing, where his energy recently, I've noticed more so, is like, you're actually proper black. Like, you're unapologetically black, but you don't get tarnished with a brush with that, and you are also able to go in any room and pivot. How have you, for someone who hasn't, because look, bro, a lot of these artists up and coming could take a leaf out of your book in regards to that, because let's be honest, something I always knew growing up, your communication can end up getting watered down if you don't know how to do it. What your goals are may take longer to hit if you don't know how to pivot in each room. So like, I want you to give a bit of game on that for, like, let's say an up and coming artist as well. Like, how important is that for them?
I think it's important to be a really good communicator in anything you do in life. Do you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, relationships play a massive part in anything you do. Your relationships with your friends, your romantic relationships, your relationship with your school teachers or uni tutors, etc. So having good communication skills is just like a fundamental thing that's going to help you in life. It's going to help you negotiate a better deal on your car insurance. It's going to help you negotiate with a sales assistant who's not giving you a refund at the till. Do you see what I'm saying? Good communication skills are going to go a long way. And what I would say to any young exec or any young artist who's maybe only ever dealt with one type of person growing up, just like I did, right? Growing up, I only dealt with people from the ends. Is all people fundamentally are the same.
I agree.
When you boil it down, we're just humans. And whether you're the richest person in the world, whether you're Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, whether you're the president or prime minister of a country, whether you're the biggest celebrity in the world, the basic functions of laughing, crying, all of the feelings, the human emotions that people go through, jealousy, grief, anger, betrayal, etc. Needing to eat, needing to sleep, needing to shit, like all of those things on a really, really basic level, we all are.
Yeah.
And I think I learned quite quickly that the executives in the companies that I worked at, I'm talking about when I was in my teenage years and my early 20s, I realized, we've got more in common than I thought we did.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even though you went to a private school, I went to a comprehensive, even though you grew up in a 5-bedroom detached house in the suburbs, I grew up on a council estate. Like, even though on paper, it was like we started off here, actually, because of the common goals and us sitting next to each other and realizing that we like football, we both support Arsenal, or later on in life, we've both got kids that are a similar age, or we both like a particular type of food. On a really basic level, you can connect with someone. And once you find a connection point with them, it then makes communication much more easier. Yeah. And then what's amazing is if you're open to it, you start learning about different people. When I first joined the BBC, I didn't know about LGBTQ culture. I didn't know about the fact that it wasn't just black people that suffered racism. I didn't realize that actually, just because you grew up in a middle class or even upper class environment, it meant that you didn't have hardship. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a bag of people that grew up in middle class environments where they actually didn't have food in the fridge because their parents were struggling to pay the mortgage and send them to private school. Do you see what I'm saying? So actually, you've got way more in common than you think with that person. Just because you're black, they're white, or you're black, they're Asian, mixed race, Jewish, whatever it is, you've got a bag in common with people, much more than you realise. So that's what I'll say to any young person watching this.
What's your ideas on that narrative as well? Like, you would know more than anyone that, like, this culture vulture narrative of, like, the record labels aren't there for the artists and they're just trying to just take. Like, what's your idea on that?
What can I say that's going to be non-controversial? What can I say?
Niche Group is proud to announce that we have partnered with over 150 coaches, consultants, and B2B businesses. So now we can place you at a guaranteed remote closing job where you can earn anything between 5 to 20 grand a month. That's right, I said a guaranteed remote
Whoa. What are you, I used to G word, bro.
But they're gonna make 5 to 20 grand a month.
The G, bro, we can't say guaranteed, it's the internet, bro.
Well, it's guaranteed. We signed the contract. You didn't see the email?
Oh, it's done now?
Well, it's done.
Ah. So what is this for?
It's a guaranteed remote closing job. All they have to do is they close people at a high ticket and they're gonna make between 10 and 20%.
Well, what about if they haven't got any experience? No sales trip.
We're gonna train them.
Duh. Sorry, bro.
I'm all confused. Anyway, look, if you're interested, the price is £3,000 for the first 100 people. It's the same as the Sales Academy, but now we just place you at a job at the end.
So that includes the training as well?
Yes, the training as well.
Sick.
You know what? Here's what
I put you in a position.
Political Austin's coming out.
Okay, go on.
You know what? I'd say, here's what I'd say. If you wrote down on a piece of paper how much the fruit, okay, let me rephrase. If you wrote down on a piece of paper how much is invested into black music from the major labels, I'm gonna rewind again.
It's cool. We can edit.
No, you don't even have to edit. But
Okay.
I want to just make sure that I'm saying the right thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to edit. If you wrote down on a piece of paper how much money is invested into black music artists versus how much is generated from black music artists, that number might surprise you depending on what record label you're looking at. There are some artists that are very, very successful straight away. If you look at the relationship between Atlantic Records and Tion Wayne, that's a very successful relationship that generates, you know, a significant amount of revenue each year. If you look at certain other investments that we've made, they take longer to come to fruition. So you're investing based on faith and belief. You're not investing based on getting a return on investment. Do you see what I'm saying? So I would say that I'm sure that there are record labels out there that take advantage. I'm sure that there are record labels out there that have been culture vultures in the past. My experience, and like I said, I can only talk for Warner and Atlantic. They're the only two labels I work within or I've worked within. I felt I've seen a healthy level of investment in black music culture. Certainly Atlantic Records for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. We're investing millions of pounds in black music culture, but we're also trying to give back without taking anything as well. I'm on the board of the Blavatnik Social Justice Fund. That's $100 million fund, and we've given away over $25 million to date. And that's not asking for a penny back. That's all grants and the giving away of money without asking for anything in return. Do you see what I'm saying? So we're definitely trying to give back. We're not perfect. I'm sure labels make mistakes. I'm sure Atlantic make mistakes as well. But by and large, we invest, man, at a 7-figure level, you know, every single year into black music culture.
What I like that you've just done, and it's probably the first time I've heard someone do that, is you've made me think of it from the other side of a business, in the sense that we only hear the artist and their rants. And I don't even mean necessarily UK, more so America and however far it goes. But I've never looked at it like, well, from a business, this is an investment. Like, do you know what I mean? It's so simple, but I never look at it like that. So it's like, how much are we investing? And on top of that, it is business. I think that narrative probably comes from is sometimes, and I'll be the one to say it, sometimes uneducated people getting into business because it's just business and feeling like maybe what they knew on the day one of signing this contract versus what they know now 3 years later is different. And I think that usually leads to, because there hasn't necessarily been, they haven't gone the most articulate way about communicating that. It leads to just a frustrated rant on Twitter that leads to viral blogs, this, that, and the other, and this record label getting slandered for X, Y, Z. So I think, in hindsight, I think the main thing is, number one, is realising that's business. Number two, and maybe you can even finish this off, advice for someone getting into a deal that isn't necessarily the most educated on business, what would you say?
Transparency, man. Like, any artist that we have conversations with when we're about to get into business with them, when we're about to partner with them, we always sit them down. And whether it be the artist themselves, their manager, obviously the lawyers will already have, you know, their knowledge on what a deal looks like and what the implications are. But from our point of view, and from my point of view, I always try to be as transparent as possible. If we invest this amount into your career over the first 18 months of this contract period, this is what it means. And we really break it down. And I don't think there's any artist that we've had a conversation with or that we've even partnered with that will tell you any different. I'm quite confident in that, do you know what I'm saying? Like, we try to be very, very transparent. And ultimately, if you look at the way that major labels invest, a bank probably wouldn't invest in an artist's career in the same way that we do. Because a lot of our investment is based on faith, especially when it's a brand new artist who doesn't have any proof of concept yet. So let's forget the top level of independent acts. Let's talk about someone who's in their bedroom who's just got an amazing talent. They've just got an incredible talent, an incredible voice. You know, they look great, whatever that might be for different people. And you just think that this person could be the next Ed Sheeran, the next Tion Wayne, the next Mahalia, the next Koji Radical, the next Cardi B, but they don't have any proof that they're going to do that. How do you value that?
Fact.
Do you see what I'm saying? How do you value something that's never existed before?
Later and be like, this isn't fair, because at that time you actually wasn't valued. Like, there was no market value on you. Now, a year later, we may realise that now, but it's unfair to point the finger at the labels and say you've taken advantage because there was no value at the time.
Yeah, but also that's like, my whole thing is that sometimes the investment, it works both ways. So sometimes an artist is undervalued, sometimes they're overvalued. And in fact, quite a lot of the times, artists are overvalued at that point. And actually, sometimes even artists that do have a track record and have proof of concept are either under or overvalued because it's not an exact science. It's a little bit like football transfers. What's a player worth? Do you know what I mean? What is Mbappe worth? Is it 100 million? 120 million, 200 million, 200, like, really, it kind of depends sometimes on market forces. It sometimes depends on things that are out of your control. It sometimes depends on how competitive a deal is. There's bare different reasons why you might value someone that particular amount on that particular day. But what I would say generally to any artist coming through is, ask for transparency, ask the questions, speak to your lawyer, speak to an accountant. Google, man. Google will tell you. ChatGPT. ChatGPT. Like Google will tell you, and ChatGPT and AI chatbots or whatever will tell you so much that you will educate you so much more than 10, 15 years ago. I personally think, and it might be a little bit harsh, and we might have to edit this out. There is no excuse. There is no excuse for an artist to ever say they didn't know what they were signing. There is no excuse. Not in 2023. Do you know what I mean? We won't even as Atlantic Records, we won't even partner with an artist unless they have legal representation. And I'm pretty sure that most labels are the same. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's really no excuse nowadays to say that you didn't understand what your contract meant.
Do you think there was back in the day?
100%. Do you know what I mean? Way back in the day, I'm sure there was a lot of
like I'm talking like that first wave of like, because I know, and obviously it's been said publicly, like I won't go into depth of it, but I know like Krypton Conan I spoke about their deal not being the best. At that time in period, would you say it was fair for people to have not understood deals because it was lack of education, right?
I'm not too sure, to be totally honest with you. Obviously, I can't speak on their situation because I wasn't, you know, I don't have any information on that, but big up. But, you know, obviously, even 10 years ago, there was a lot of information on how deals are structured, what deals mean, etc. Sometimes things can get lost in communication, and sometimes even I read contracts still years later and have to pick up the phone to our legal team and get an understanding of what a particular term means, etc. So all I would say to any artist is just before you sign anything, make sure you read through every single piece of it, because see, like when you get a mobile phone contract out, you get sent a PDF, and that PDF's got like 100 pages in it. You don't read it, you scroll to the bottom and you sign it, Ultimately, that mobile phone contract that's got like 100 pages in it, only 1 or 2 of those pages are really going to affect your ability to pick up your phone and use it. But in a record contract, those 10, 20, 30 pages on the long form contract, every single page of that has a profound impact on your career. So read it.
No, that's a really good analogy. You mentioned like the value in certain artists and it being good. And obviously, I know you're not a man to ever throw names out there and stuff, but I know a lot of rappers be making a lot of money, man. Like, there's a lot of money in the game now, and it's obvious to see, especially from like 10 years ago. Like, what can we talk about in regards to the money that's being made? Like, you obviously know a lot more about what's being made, also versus what looks like it's being made too. Because you know how it is as a rapper, it's flamboyant lifestyle, and especially the kids can just think everyone's just balling out of control and this, that, and the other. Like, what is really going on? How much can you tell us about what's going on?
That's a really good question, man. That's one I've never been asked before. What I think what I'd say is, so I did like a super rough calculation, and when I say rough calculation, it was just me, my head, a little bit of data that I had access to, and I tried to put a value on Black British music and its value. So that was like recorded revenue, publishing, live, brand deals, etc. And I valued it, like I said, it's just my calculation, no one else's calculation. I valued it at like £250 million ish. That could be like massively over or under. It could be just about right. I don't know. But I just sort of looked at it and was like, all right, cool. You know, you sort of look at all the Black music artists, major and independents, what they're generating, looking at the live scene, looking at catalogue, obviously, because you've now got your first wave of artists that have got a catalogue now. Skepta, Dizzy, Giggs, Kano, etc. And then obviously, then the next generation after that, Chip, Tiny, Tinchy, Pro Green, etc. So I sort of looked at all of it, like all together, and was like, what is the industry worth? 250 million. Like I said, that could be completely wrong. But that's what I valued it at. In terms of how much money artists make, it's probably worth me breaking down the way in which, you know what, more like the way in which money can be spent.
Yes.
So you could have 2 artists here, and they both get paid £1,000 for a show. So you've got artist A and artist B. Artist A gets paid £1,000 to do a 30-minute set. Artist B gets paid £1,000 to do a 30-minute set. Artist A's got a manager that takes 10%. Artist B's got a manager that takes 20%. Artist A is in a record deal or a deal with a team where they take a percentage of live. artist B is independent, so they don't have anyone who's taking any of their life. Artist A could roll with a DJ and security and some people around them that they need to pay money to because they're employing them. Artist B might roll alone. Artist A might have a large production rider, so they've got like fireworks and they've got like screens behind them, etc. Artist B might just roll up him, his brethren, a microphone, and that's it. So you can see already how two artists that are making £1,000 each, one could end the night with 8 bills, 7 bills left, and another one is actually in debt because they've spent more than that £1,000 that they've made, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when it comes to what artists are making money, who's making the most amount of money, etc., you know, generally in any business, the people that are having the most success are probably generating the most amount of money. Generally, that's how it works. But how that money is spent and that artist's lifestyle, their home situation, how good they are with money, saving, all of those things obviously play a part as well.
Yeah. What in regards to that, like, I know, again, this is just through network, like I know behind the scenes, and I know for facts, and I would never name names as well, because I'm like you, I have a lot of relationships that are just behind the scenes, you know what I mean? And even like when sometimes my friends, like, who are just normal everyday people, they'll be like, well, why did you get so-and-so on the pod? I'm like, do you know what? It's like, we just have a relationship that is just a relationship. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's not always all of that. Like, even like, big shout out to a good friend of mine, Mist, very good friend of mine. I link Mist every time I come back to London. He links me every time I was on the phone to him this morning. We ain't done a pod. We might never do a pod. I go over to his house, like, he'll be like, come bro, stay at my house. We may never film, and I've accepted that because it's actually my brethren, do you know what I mean? But being in these rooms, I also hear things, and I know that you've had a lot of impactful conversations with people, artists. And again, it's not so much about naming the names, but I want to touch on that. Like, I want to touch on, number one, how important that is for you. And number two, what that's been like what you can tell us. Again, it's just all about what you can tell us.
Yeah, I hear that. You know what? I feel like I've always felt like relationships are key. And I actually learned this from Smiler. Shout out to Smiler. Because when he was on the roads, and I think he won't mind me saying that now, years gone by, obviously he's a grown family man or whatever, he had a level of customer service that I'd never seen before. And again, 15, 20 years on or whatever, like, it's probably pretty standard now. But at the time, I was like, raw, like, you've actually, like, you're actually doing customer service. And you're actually resolving problems. And you're actually you're actually helping people out beyond, like, a business transaction. So, taking his behavior into the corporate world, I was the same. I was like, your name, if you can make sure that your name holds weight, and you can make sure that people can rely on you, and you're consistent in the way that you are with people, then that will go a long way when a situation ever does come up. And for me, I always want to make sure that if two artists or two people are in a studio or in a meeting room and I'm not there, they're saying good things about me. You see what I'm saying? So I've helped out a lot of artists, obviously, behind the scenes, conversations that no one's ever going to know about. You know what I'm saying? And that's sick, man. And by the way, the opposite is true. There's bare people that have helped me behind it. There's bare artists that have helped me behind the scenes. There's bare industry people that have done favors for me and that have helped me work out tricky situations, etc. So I enjoy that part of the job, you know, and that's something that still happens to this day. Even if there are certain artists that aren't signed to Atlantic, there are certain artists that are signed to other record labels, but there's obviously a friendship that goes beyond what labels we work for or are signed to or whatever. And I'll still give them advice to this day, man, because we've just got to keep it real with people, man. And I just have to keep it true. So yeah, that's it.
What kind of things do you talk about? So in the sense of, what I've heard is that you're very good at guiding on how artists level up, like how to do best for them above everything. But like, Can we share some of those things in the sense of not so much who you said it to, but just what you've said?
Yeah, definitely, man. So I'm trying to think, man. I say a lot of things. I can't remember what I say. But I listen. I think whenever a lot of artists obviously get to a stage in their career where they're repeating the same results, so they might have broken the top 40. How do I break the top 20, the top 10? They might have reached a particular level in terms of like video views, audio streams. How do I get to the next level? They might have been playlisted on a smaller radio station. How do I get on the big boy radio station? How can I go from Kiss Fresh to Kiss back in the day when I was at radio? How can I go from 1Xtra to Radio 1, etc.? And for me, I always say, make sure that people feel embarrassed to not support you. Do so well that it's weird someone not supporting you. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if you're like breaking the top 20 and you're getting millions of streams and you've got mad social media clout, how's a radio station or a streaming service not going to support you? And I always say that, like, never put yourself in a position where your fate is decided by one person. The amount of times that I've been in certain positions and people would like see me or my team as the one thing that we're going to change their life. And I'm like, yo, like, don't make me or my team the messiahs. Do you know what I'm saying? Don't make us the oracles. Do you see what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, put like stand on your own 2 feet and put yourself in a position where I'm chasing you down. And if I look at all the artists that I've been played a small part in their journey, I chase them down. If I look at the biggest artists from the UK that I've had the pleasure of seeing kind of grow, it was me chasing them down. I reached out to Stormzy. It was me that was like, who's this Ed Sheeran kid, after everyone kept on talking about him? Someone played me Stefflon Don's music for the first time. You're like, who's this? Going on social media, right? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, trying to find out who this person was. All of the artists that have actually stood the test of time and that are doing their thing, it was me chasing them down, not the other way around. If I think about the artists that were chasing us down, they're the ones that maybe didn't quite have the same level of career as the ones that just worried about, let me just create the best music possible and connect with my fans.
That's mad interesting. Like, would you say to someone who's sitting there right now and they're thinking that they've got a little bit of a buzz, that if that's the case, just make the product better? Or do you see the value in, like, yo, bro, would love to have a chat with you, maybe take you out for a coffee, just pick your brains a bit? Do you see value in that? Or do you think just keep working?
You know what, as an artist, I feel like if you're having to try and take out industry people to get on, then you're focusing on the wrong things.
That's mad.
Focus on your art. Like, let your managers do that. Let your team do that if you've got a team. If you're independent and you've got the £50 or you've got the money on your oyster to take someone out to lunch, yo, go and do a pop-up show somewhere, man. Go outside of college or secondary school or uni and hand out flyers. Like,
create your own buzz.
Create your own buzz. Create a street team. Create an online fan base. Create a community, man. Go on Discord. Go on Reddit. Use ChatGPT to, do you know what I mean, to your advantage. Like, I definitely don't feel like as an artist you should be trying to build super early in your career. Don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place where, as an artist, building a relationship with tastemakers and people that are influential when it comes to making decisions, of course, there's a time and a place for that, but not at the start of your career.
You've mentioned a few times, like, Web3. Yeah, you mentioned ChatGPT, and I've been seeing this craze recently with this AI songs and all this madness. What's your views on that?
You know what? I can't talk about that. Obviously, I work for Warner, a publicly listed company, so there are certain topics I've got to kind of stay a little bit kind of clear from. But what I would say is, yeah, man, I sort of love AI. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's going to present some scary challenges, but it's also got some amazing opportunities as well, man.
Could you touch on maybe what challenges you think it might present, or is that a bit?
I'll let the experts. I'll let the experts at Warner talk about that.
Just in reference some people you've referenced, like I had to, and I wanted to reference Smiler. Just touching on that, like, firstly, your relationship with Smiler has always been, like, I've never met Smiler in my life, but I've always known that's your guy, And you've touched on today that you went to primary school and whatnot together. Like, what part did you play in I know obviously it was a management role, but what part not just did you play, forget that, because we were clear on that. What part has he played for you, though?
You know what, like...
Because it feels like he's played a big part for you too.
He's my brother. Do you see what I'm saying? Same primary school, same secondary school, same college. the first time I got arrested, it was with him. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's like we've literally like come out of, I don't want to say the mud, because we grew up in like households where our parents loved us, etc. But we came from like quite dark circumstances. Do you know what I'm saying? And you know, now we're on holidays together. Do you know what I mean? Families mixing, doing some amazing stuff in life. Do you know what I'm saying? And I feel like it's amazing that I can share that with someone who's known me longer than anyone else has.
Yes.
So
what area was that? Where area?
Woolwich. We grew up in Woolwich. We grew up in Woolwich. So it's like, I feel like if you look at like most people that have got long careers tend to have quite stable. They tend to have a cluster of stable friends in the background.
Big germ, yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Quite often, not all the time, but the correlation that I've seen is that people that have got a group of stable friends behind them, quite often behind the scenes, who don't care about the glitz, don't care about the glamour, don't care about all of the good stuff that you're doing. They're just your brethren from back in the day.
Yeah.
That tends to keep you stable, do you know what I mean, on your trajectory. And I'm really lucky that a lot of my friends, I either went to primary school with them, secondary school or college, you know what I mean? So I've known them 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, going back to Smiles, any decision that I've made around career, life, X, Y, and Z, I'm going to my brother first, and he's coming to me first, you know what I'm saying? So that's what it is, man. Like, and obviously there's other people as well, man. Shout out to all my brethren, they know who they are, don't even have to say their names. All my family that I've grown up with, that we've sort of all come up together. But yeah, man, Smiles is my guy.
Yeah. Another person that you're a big part of being behind is Els the Witch. Big shout out to Els the Witch, man. Like, I've always had a lot of time for, just because she, above everything, in an industry that, and not, this is going away from music now, in the influencer industry, I think a lot of it is a lot of nonsense, in my opinion. Yeah, you meet a lot of fugazi people. I think it's probably worse than music sometimes, but she's just very... I think I met her when she had just started a transition to London, and she just seemed like a girl on a mission, and it reminded me of like Maya Jama years back when she first moved to London, and it was like, I'm here for a purpose, and I've seen her, and this is all from my own eyes, like I've seen her shift her focus, and it's just got more and more intense and intense and intense from when she was on, I think it was Rinse, I jumped on with her, to obviously where she is now. And then one day she popped out and was like, oh, my management. And when I saw your name, I was like, it's over. I was like, it's over. Like, everyone just shut shop. Like, let's just listen, everyone finished. Like, all your influencers, it's done, yeah? And it was interesting for me to watch because that wasn't your industry as well, as far as I had known. I know you've stepped out of music, but let's talk about that, man, because she's killing it. Like, she's on McDonald's, JD Sport, like, I'm seeing her everywhere, like FIFA, like, she's killing it. The other day she was in UAE, like, she's just killing it.
Listen, she's flying the wall, man. Big up to Els the Witch, and big up Insanity as well, who manage her day to day. Yeah, man, listen.
What's your role with her?
So I wouldn't say I discovered her, because she was already, I suppose, an influencer at the point at which I met her, but you know, she had maybe a few thousand followers at that point. And what I saw was, so I've always had an interest in gaming, and as you know, I've always had an interest in like tech and stuff like that. And when I first met Els, what I saw was somebody who was highly intelligent, freakishly intelligent, someone who was highly organized, someone who was a natural born presenter, and someone who was striking, right? She walks into a room and she sort of commands attention. And yeah, we started working together, and it was my job to magnify her confidence, to magnify her value, do you know what I'm saying? And to formalize a lot of the thoughts that she already had in her head, do you know what I'm saying? And what was crazy to me was when I first started to get to know her, and we were sitting down and talking about like, kind of, it started off as like more of like a mentor-mentee relationship. And what was crazy to me when I first started understanding who she was when she told me that she had graduated from university, and she was working for IBM. And I was like, doing what? And she was like, oh, doing project management. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you know what I mean? And not to say that I was judging a book by a cover, by its cover, but I was judging a book by its cover. Do you know what I'm saying? And being like, hey, you're an influencer who looks really glamorous, and hold on one sec, like, you're a project manager at IBM. I'm onto something. Do you know what I'm saying? So the relationship developed from there, and she had a really clear idea as to what she wanted to do. And it's funny because I actually sent her a PDF just about a month ago where she had written down a business plan. Do you know what I'm saying? And she wrote this business plan and she sent it to me. I then tweaked it, and then we then took it to an investor. I won't say who the investor was. I'll let her tell that story. But we took it to an investor, and we were like, brand Els the Witch. This is what we want to do. This is our journey. And it's crazy looking back at that PDF that she wrote, because apart from one thing, she's achieved every single thing that she put on there. And that's more power to her and her hard work. So yeah, basically we got some investment. I invested too in them early stages, and we set about executing the strategy. Do you know what I'm saying? And that was, look, this is the objective, this is the strategy, and these are the tactics that we're going to use. Do you know what I'm saying? To help grow her. And yeah, it grew from, you know, 20,000 followers, 40, 100, do you know what I mean? And it got to a point where, you know, I still had a full-time job, obviously. So it got to a point where we needed help, because we weren't quite able to maximize the opportunities that were being put in front of us, because I had a full-time job. She obviously could only do so much herself, etc. So we went about a process of trying to find the right company to partner with and the right team to partner with. And fast forward a couple of years, or a year or two, and we decided that Insanity was the right home for her. Shout out to Andy Varley, shout out to Issy, shout out to Laura, an amazing team that have taken the journey that we started, that was kind of like a small bushfire, and they poured a hell of petrol on it and gasoline on it, and have turned it into a forest fire. Do you know what I mean? And there's obviously still more to come. So yeah, so Insanity's involvement is their management, their day-to-day. They kind of manage her. Everyone go to Insanity if they've got any inquiries about her. And, you know, I'm co-manager. And, you know, I really sit down with Insanity and Els, and, you know, we talk strategy and kind of long-term goals and stuff, man. But listen, man, Els the Witch, man, she's an amazing talent.
Yeah.
So anytime she does it, anytime I get an alert because she posts something. Obviously, I know her diary, but anytime she pops up on my social media, I'm just so proud. Do you know what I mean? I've seen that. A lot of the artist journeys, I've seen it, but from a distance. Do you know what I'm saying? But with Els, seeing it like how me and you are here over the last 5-6 years, man, it's been incredible. And there's more to come, man. She's got some amazing stuff lined up that you guys are going to hear about soon.
Sick, yeah. Big up Els, man. Big up Els. All right, cool. Listen, bro, you've met probably everyone you can imagine, yeah. But I wanna round off with who has been a bit of a throw off to you in the sense of positively, not so much starstruck, but just someone that outside of the UK even that is a star that has had an impact on you. Who is that, and what has that impact been?
I think honestly, I'm not just saying this as a political answer. Like, every artist inspires me. Like, it could be an ad-lib, it could be the whole song, it could be an album. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, honestly, like, every artist who produces a moment of greatness inspires me. And there are certain UK rappers that wouldn't even believe that, like, every single day, some of my mantras come from, like, me just hearing something on their mixtape. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, the one I always chuckle about is Young Spray. He was like, persistence beats resistance. I heard that on the Realer Than Most mixtape. However many years ago, and I swear down, every single day that pops into my head. You see what I'm saying? Every single day. So
you're a proper lover of the culture.
Artists inspire me, and do you know what I mean? It could be one little lyric, it could be a song, it could be a title, it could be something that they wore. Do you know what I mean? Like, every artist inspires me. Rest in peace, DMX, man. My second day at One Extra.
No way.
Like, second day at One Extra, my boss took me to go and watch DMX perform.
Way.
And you got to think here, before then, I'd been to concerts, but like barrier, stage, barrier, crowd, me. So to be at this DMX concert and he's like rapping and just like walking past, man, I was like, yeah, this is crazy, man. Like, man.
Yeah, that's mental.
So there's bear, man, but I'm going to save them for the book. The crazy ones I'm going to save for the book. You know what I'm saying? We need to up themselves. So.
I can imagine. There's going to be a lot in that book. Nah, my brother, I appreciate you, man. I think we got a lot from that. Good preview for the book. And yeah, bro, just keep on inspiring, man. I can't lie. Like, you're a trailblazer, and you know that anyway. So
wicked, man. And respect to you as well, man. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, man, you're doing a lot for the culture. I'm loving this new podcast series. I've been watching it as well. Do you know what I'm saying, man? So big up to everyone who's been subscribing and supporting the journey as well.
My brother, there you have it. We out. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure if you don't know about this absolute legend, you definitely do now. And I also want to know what main gems you got from this as well. We out, man. Peace.